Welcome to our Thursday live video. Great to see everybody. It's a very rainy Thursday here in New Jersey. For those who are new to our community, my name is Robert O'Keefe. I'm a local real estate broker in Monmouth County, New Jersey. We cover all over New Jersey. I'm born and raised here. And our job is to help people relocate, downsize, and find a solution that meets their needs, which is actually what we're going to be talking about today. Very exciting topic. I really love this topic. And essentially, the way I kind of envision my company and envision the people that I want to work with is I want to get people that are in their research phase. I'm a big researcher, I'm a big planner, just like naturally how my personality is. And I love talking to people when they're in their research phase, people that aren't ready to go right away, but people that are thinking, brainstorming options. I really love that. And what's so fun about this job is everybody's different. Everybody has different needs, different kind of like different needs and different preferences. So there's not one solution that's alike for everybody. So it makes my job very exciting. So we encourage you to reach out way ahead of time. If you're on this webinar, if you're doing a little bit of research, you came to the right place. I'm going to give you some ideas on how to think about your 55 plus community search, your downsizing solution, and we're just going to kind of brainstorm some ideas together. Today, what we're going to talk about is beyond the brochure, which amenities are important to you. Now, the thing about real estate and what I was going into is real estate is very personal. We actually can't go and recommend different communities in different areas for you. So there's essentially a law in New Jersey and across the United States called steering, where we can't like push a certain community or a certain area to you. But what we can do is we can kind of go over some recommendations and just go into the best way for you to do some research and give you some ideas on how to research and narrow down communities. If you want to think about real estate as a funnel, you want to kind of make a baseline for yourself and kind of narrow down from there what the best options are. So typical baseline is location number one, price range number two, bedroom count. And then what we see in 55 plus communities that's very common is some people want a standalone home and not a condo. So they're used to that privacy. They're used to having nobody over their head, no neighbors next door to them. Some people, interestingly, like that, and they just want a condo, and they just want to be a part of an apartment community. Or some people don't even mind between both options. So it just goes back to our theme of that real estate is a personal preference, and it's really all about what's important to you. So in this one, what we're going to cover is some active versus quiet communities, differences in HOA fees, and what to look at and how to do your own research beyond the brochure, we call it. In the brochure, like, let me tell you a story. So when I went to college, the internet is much more advanced than when I was looking for college opportunities. And a lot of times we selected our college based on the brochures. And obviously went to a great college I was very happy with, but the brochures really get people in, and really their job is to sell the community, right? Because the more people that are in the community, the more people that are paying the HOA, the stronger the community is, the better for everybody. The better it is for everybody. So you want to look beyond the brochure. We're going to teach you some strategies on how to do this. And if you stick around to the end, we have a copy of that brochure and kind of like a checklist on how to do your own research. So we'll go over some strategies like that and how to look beyond the brochure and do the best research. So the first thing to be aware of is the difference between active and quiet communities. So active communities, we call it, are communities with active sports. So pickleball, some communities have golf courses. Some communities have swimming pools and fitness centers. And pretty much like the more active communities, you can expect to pay a higher HOA fee to maintain those communities. So I was just talking to someone that lives in Covered Bridge in Manalapan, and she was basically complaining that her HOA went up into the 400 range, which is a bit high for a 55 plus community. And the reason is they have a lot of different activities. And interestingly enough, in this community, what she was saying was the company or the community doesn't own their own event center, so they have to lease that for events. So that's kind of like an outlier, but also the benefit to being well researched and to doing your research ahead of time, because that's an additional cost the residents have to pay for. So with an active community like that, that's having active events and very active, you can expect to pay a higher HOA fee. So it really comes down to a personal preference. Some people love those activities. Some people are all about them. They want to do the pickleboard. They want to have like the tennis club, which is really cool. And some people don't even use them. So, for example, a community like Cheesequake that we really like and we recommend, they have very low HOA fees. It would be considered a kind of a quieter community. They have a pool. That's pretty much kind of the extent of it. But mostly, it's mostly just a complex where everybody mostly kind of keeps to themselves a little bit. So, with those communities, with the very basic HOA fees, for the very basic quiet communities, you can see the HOA fees are generally lower than other communities. Another community like that is Cheshire Square, which I know very well in Little Silver. Now, they don't really have any amenities per se. There's no swimming pool, there's no clubhouse. It's essentially just a really great community, a great location that's walkable to everything. But just because they're so insulated, just because they don't really have a lot of bells and whistles, I think this is the best word to describe it, their HOA fee is kept very low. So it really depends, just going back to the baseline and the theme of our conversation, it really depends on what you're looking for and what's important to you in a community. And you may get to the community, you may want to try some different things. There's a lot of great orientations when you join these communities, so you can kind of figure out what's right for you. So there's a lot of different things to choose from. If someone's in the audience, if you it would be interesting to see if you would prefer a community packed with activities or a quiet retreat. We always like to get polls and information from our community. When I tell these stories, everything's anonymous, but I just tell basic things other people are thinking. It generally helps a lot of people in our community, and you'll always be anonymous unless you want to chime in on the chat, or you can message me directly and just let me know what you're thinking there. And one of the other common questions we get is, what do the HOA fees typically cover? So the main bulk of the HOA is typically property maintenance. That's snow removal, that's grass cutting, just general maintenance that you don't want to deal with moving into a retirement community. The next is typically reserve. Now, this is another very important thing to look for when you're buying into an HOA community, is you want a property with very strong reserves. So reserves are money basically set aside in a fund, usually a separate bank account, for capital expenditures. Clubhouse renovations, roof replacements, swimming pool renovations, things like that. If a complex doesn't have a big reserve fund, then you should be aware of pending assessments and ways to get the money if something drastic happens. When I was starting my career, I started in Hudson County and did a ton of condos. And one of the most important things we looked for was a strong reserve fund, because that HOA fee, every condo, every HOA association is a small business. So if there's not enough money for a roof, if there's not enough money for a renovation, if the company just has poor finances in general, that money has to come from somewhere, and generally the residents are assessed. So what we want to look for too is, before we close and with our first-hand knowledge, we want to make sure you're buying into a great community to safeguard yourself against assessments and things of that nature. So we kind of went off topic a little bit here. So reserves, maintenance, clubhouse and pools is another thing that are maintained, especially if it's a pool. Like pool heating gets a little bit expensive. And then there's security. If a community has a security staff, like Shadow Lake, for example, those people are salaried. So that does lead to an HOA that you have to be aware of. Here's some things you might pay extra for. One is specialty classes. Sometimes there's a small fee for specialty classes. Another is golf course membership. We talked about Covered Bridge. They have a separate golf course next to the community. I think they give a discounted membership, if I'm not mistaken, but that's something that you could pay extra for. Beautiful course, beautiful complex if you've ever been there. The golf course kind of borderlines the community. So it's really nice just to walk down. I'll walk down the street. You can see the golf course there. Very tempting to go and hit some balls there. Shadow Lake in Middletown has their own golf course on site as well. So that might be something you have to pay extra for. I would have to look into that if you're interested. And then also there's private event spaces. So if you want to reserve the private event space, there's generally a small fee for that. Every community, again, is run differently. Some people will just let you reserve it. But the fees aren't too bad when it comes to that. They just kind of want to give everyone a break, and everyone's in the same boat. If anyone has any questions, feel free to chime in. If you have to jump off too, this video, of course, will be recorded. So let's go into beyond the brochure and kind of what to look for when choosing a community. So basically what I would do is I would focus on location first. I would go into your price range is another good one. And then I would go into your individual priorities. I have one gentleman that's moving. He had a single car garage, and it's kind of funny. He's been there for a long time. And when buying the house 30 years ago, basically his family wanted this house, but now in retirement, he wants a double car garage. So that's cool. And there's a lot of ways we can filter that out to search for double car garages, pretty much everything you're looking for. Um, but one of the best ways to do it is once getting that baseline, you can actually go to our site too at over55nj.homes and search all the communities there. And you can actually plug in what's important to you. So, for example, with the garage, you could put garage car spaces and up. If you don't want a pool, you could put no for a pool. And if you want to cap your HOA, which is one of my favorite features, you can do that on our website as well. So we actually have a search link too that we can share in the chat where you can search for HOAs below $300. And we encourage you to go on the site. Again, the site's over55nj.homes and kind of do searches for yourself and set up your own search criteria. That's what's so fun about this process and being in the research phase is you can just go online and customize the searches and the search alerts to see what the best option is for you. So beyond personal preference, how do you do research on a great community? A lot of these communities have orientation sessions. Now, before I go into these, this is just kind of the spoiler alert that these tips kind of will take time and attendance and work. One funny story is we work with a lot of millennial buyers too, and millennial buyers are notorious for seeing the apps, opening up the apps on their phone. I call it the app trap, and just going to different houses without knowing a lot of information about the different areas. So you want to be careful with that, and you want to go location based and really research the options. I find it amazing how a lot of people will buy a serious investment like this, especially a young person starting out, and they don't really do a lot of research on the towns and communities that they're in. So these require work, but in my opinion, very worth it and very worth the return on investment. So the first one that requires time is attending an orientation session. You can just go in and just get some information about the activities. Another is actually going to the communities. Highly recommend this one. This is my favorite one. Just walking around, go on a Saturday, go on a weekday and get a feel for it. A lot of times you can just talk to people and people will tell you their experience about the community. We were at Shadow Lake and had a couple buyers talking to some people, and it really doesn't preclude to that community, it could preclude to everything. So we just stop and we talk to people. Always take it with a grain of salt. Some people don't like it, some people really like it, but it's just interesting to get that feedback there. Chatting with residents, we had some people playing pickleball. We were watching the pickleball game, and it just kind of it's kind of, there's just no place. We call it getting real estate under your fingernails, and there's no substitute to that for that. Just being in person, walking around, getting a feel for it, and then just like chatting someone up as they're walking by to see how they like it. And that being said, too, go at different times too. Go on the weekend, go during the weekday. If you want to take an evening drive to see what it's like, you can drive through. Just no substitute for that. Another one that's very easy is to get a copy of the community calendar. If you have certain communities you're interested, we can pull that for you. We have some links in our database for that. But if you have some preferences on which activities you like, you can always look at the community calendar. You can kind of get a feel for the community too that way. And go on the community website and look at the news. A lot of times there's a news bulletin of what's going on in the community. So that's another way just to get a feel for everything. Now, this one is a little bit more challenging, reviewing the HOA rules. A lot of times these aren't public data. We do review some of them when we look for our clients, but if you could get a copy of the HOA rules, that might be beneficial for you as well. A lot of times it's kind of like a fear some people have that the rules are too onerous in these HOA communities, but we found they're pretty mild. Generally, people live together. They want to make it an inviting place. They want to be condo commandos and crack down on everybody. So it's really not really that big of a thing. They're hard to get anyway. If I was to prioritize, I would prioritize one, visiting the communities in person, two, speaking to a couple residents, and then three, looking on the websites and looking at the community calendar. So we have a checklist for you as promised. If you want a copy of that, just say copy in the chat, and we'll be happy to send you a direct message on that so you can start doing your research. But these are some things we would look for going beyond the brochure. And of course, that being said, you can always lean onto us as your resource. We can cut a lot of this research out for you and help you focus. This is one of the things of value for us because we focus on this niche, because we talk to so many people, because we're an expert and we focus on this. We can really help you narrow down and cut out 80% of the work for you. So we're always here for you as a resource. You can email us at over55nj@gmail.com, or you can go online and schedule a call. Right to our booking link is over55nj.chat. And one of the funnest resource we have is obviously the homes. Just going on over55nj.homes and kind of narrowing down your criteria from there. So that being said, if anybody has any questions, we have some FAQs pulled up as well. And we'll wrap and get everyone out of here. Again, this will be recorded too, so feel free to, you'll get a copy of that here in the group. Here's a good question. What's your number one priority when choosing a 55 plus community? I would say basic needs. Basic needs in terms of personal preference, location, making sure you have ample access to family members or a location of preference. Real estate is very location, location, location. So I would say number one is location, two followed by price range, making sure you're buying smart, and then three, personal preference. Another one that we get, what's one amenity you'd be willing to pay extra for? Really depends on the person. For me, I like the pool. Swimming. My grandfather was a medical professional, a doctor. He said the number one exercise you could do is swimming. Man, I miss my gym membership. I miss my pool. I miss doing laps. That's something, an exercise you could do forever. Very meditative. Gets off the phone. I would pay extra for a pool if it were me, and I'd probably be in there every morning doing laps. Is a higher HOA fee always better? It really depends on the community. You want to see a mix, right? You want to see a very healthy financial HOA where there's enough income coming in, but obviously you want to keep that HOA as low as possible. You want to see strong reserves. So you want to keep the HOA as low as possible, but make sure the community is still run correctly and still run with ample reserves. Because let's say if you have a small HOA and then the community assesses you to pay for something, that's no good either. So you just want to make sure you strike the right balance. HOA fees have gone up a little bit with inflation, just like everything. But you want to make sure that you're buying smart. And you want to make sure that HOA fee is as low as possible while still taking care of the community. All right, so that'll about do it for us. We want to thank everyone for coming on. We'll see you again next week with another topic. One more question we got. What if I move into an active 55 plus community and later want a quieter lifestyle? I just talked to someone like this. So they were moving from a community and they were just griping a little bit about how their HOA fee went up. So we put together a search for them, which we'll link in the comments for searches HOAs under $300. So if you want to move, there's generally always a buyer for them. This is a whole nother conversation and topic about the future values of these properties. But there's always people downsizing and moving in, and there's a ton of baby boomers out there. One economist dubbed it as the silver tsunami. of all the baby boomers turning 65 and downsizing. So if you want to sell, there's generally always a buyer, and of course we can help you with that and put the plan together. So you don't have to feel about being stuck. You could always rent it too, but a lot of our clients do prefer to sell and cash out. I want to shout out David Denning. Thanks for joining. Really appreciate you. Last question here. What happens if I stop paying my HOA fee? Generally, there's penalties for that, late fees. There may be a special assessment. You just want to stay on top of the HOA fee, and usually, like, they're collected quarterly. Some of them are collected monthly, but there may be a lien put on your property. But you always just want to pay that HOA fee. Every community is run differently, where you'll be penalized in certain ways. But what the best thing to do is just set up a monthly recurring payment in your bank account. That's what I did with every condo I owned in the past, just so I'm never late. So that'll do it. We'll see you next week. Thanks so much for watching. If you have any questions at all, send us a direct message. Very friendly, very easy to work with. You can also email us at over55nj@gmail.com. And we encourage you to check out the site and do some searches of your own at over55nj.homes. Take care, everybody. We'll see you next week.